Hello and welcome to the Dragons Lair podcast, your home all things Dragons RFC and rugby in the region. I'm Jamie and joining me as always is my co-host Gavin Thomas. How are we doing, Gav? We okay?
Yes, I'm very well, Jamie. Jet setting, go back from Prague yesterday, managed to watch my club side remain unbeaten in the league, and then went home to watch the Dragons, which took a bit of a shine off of the weekend.
Yes, I've heard Prague is very nice. Did you have a nice time out there?
Oh, I'd recommend it. It's £2 a beer and loads of stuff to look at.
That sounds good enough to me. As soon as you said £2 a beer, I'm sold. I'm there. Okay. So you'll find us on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and the Sports Social Network. And if you like what we do, please rate us and leave us a good review, as it all helps to grow the pod. So we've got a special guest with us this week, Gav. We got a Dragons legend from Neath, who played 180 matches for the men at Gwent and made his debut for the Dragons against the Ospreys back in 2003. He's won 5 caps for Wales, and he also has a snack bar named after him at Rodney Parade. It's Steve Jabba Jones. How are you doing, Steve?
Yeah, it's great to be here, boys. Thanks for inviting me.
Not a problem. First off, how did you get the nickname Jabba? How did that come about?
I honestly wish I had a great story for that, but it was literally my brother's nickname for a short period of time when I was probably 9, 10. And literally one of my friends picked up on it, started calling me, and it just stuck like mud. Even when I was in school, the school teachers didn't know my name. They just called me Jabba. Even when I played for Wales, we were out in South Africa, and I got introduced to Nelson Mandela as Jabba. And I got a photo of me just shaking my head like, can't believe it. I'm sure and it was Jarvis, it was. And I'm sure Colin didn't know my name. He just went, "This is Jabba." He didn't know what else to say. He obviously didn't know my name back then. So it's just no great story. It just stuck with me, and it's just stuck. It's my name now. But funny thing, it's my son's name now. Everybody's calling him Jabba as well. So it's getting a bit confusing now.
Pass it down the family. Brilliant stuff. Oh. Okay, so can you tell us all about your journey into rugby then, Steve? Where did it all start for you?
Yeah, obviously, like everyone, I started in school playing. I was always a tidy player, but it was always one of those things, always a bit small. He's too small to play, and everybody got selected anyway, up to 15s. I remember I was on the bench for my Swansea schoolboys on the 15s team. Couldn't get in there. Played bits and bobs. All my mates went to university. I trained a little bit for Aberava and didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a year out. Ended up going to Cardiff Met, which is Uwick in my day. Started playing regular then. Literally, I played for Wales probably 3 years after that. I did in Canada on a development tour, and I just went from there. Signed for Neath. Obviously went regional then, and I was with Mike with Wales A, and he took me up to the Dragons, and I was there. I didn't want to believe a place, to be honest.
You're from Neath originally, aren't you, Steve? Or Neath Valleys, aren't you?
Neath the Mumble, Swansea, pretty much. I got family both ends. I spent early when I was young. I was in Neath. Then I went to Mumbles, and then I come back when I've been here since I signed for Neath, so I've been here ever since then.
So what's your take on the Neath wanting to be part of this new competition? And they didn't take it very well, have they?
It's one of those things. Something's got to change in Welsh rugby, isn't it? We all know it needs change. But with this new league, what realistic change is it going to be? Because to me, what players are going to be playing for these teams now? Probably the same players who are playing now. So we haven't achieved anything. Now, if we got 60 players all, ready to play at that level, at an under 23 level, brilliant. But we haven't. But I just hope, it's going to take 4 or 5 years to find its feet. And hopefully by then, if regions need players, the players are below them. They can just pop in and out and take the boys, and hopefully they can flourish at the top level as well then. But it's obviously...
Sorry, go on.
It's tough, and obviously it's Archie Simon and Neath Boy. I played for Neath, and they are a fabulous club. But there's no way you could have 4 teams in the Ospreys region there. I think 3 are too much, to be honest. But it's just the way it is with the Cardiff teams at the moment, not in. We don't know about that last team coming in. But it is harsh. They've done a really lot of good work in the Knoll over the last couple of years with the people, coming in with the team, getting them back in the Prem. And it's harsh, but we do need change. I just don't know if this is the right way to go about it,
And I think there's a Neath thing as well. And I'm an old bloke, so I remember the Neath team of the 80s and going to watch with my dad. And midweek games down at the Knoll they were terrifying, but great experiences. It'd be nice to have those games again.
Yeah, well, it's just sad, isn't it? It's like, I even look at my son now. They don't really know Neath and Swansea and Newport because I still think them as massive clubs.
Mm-hmm.
But times have changed, isn't it? It is the regions now. But as I said, we do need change in Welsh rugby. I just hope if we stick with it, we'll see it flourish after a couple of years. But it's going to take 3 or 4 years to bed in. Because my worry is, if you think about it, the region struggled to fill in the the regional A fixtures. So now we've got 2 or 3 teams in every region to help supply with players. Where these players might come from.
Yeah, that's it. It's like you said, Steve, there has to be change. We do need to narrow that gap, don't we, from semi-pro to pro.
Yes,
I think a lot of people in Welsh rugby recognise it. I guess the question is this new elite development competition the way to go? But the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? But the fallout between Ospreys and Neath, I don't know if you saw it on social media. It was a little bit, well, it was so Welsh rugby, wasn't there? Conflicting statements. It's just so Welsh rugby. What did you make of that?
It is sad, isn't it? It is sad. Because if you think they were, beneath and Swansea Ospreys when they first come onto the scene, don't they? It is tough, but it's obviously you always want to crack some eggs when you want to try and make something, isn't it? And it's just sad. It is nice. But as you said, I just see all the players we produce in Wales from up to 18 years of age is probably better than any team in the world. But we have got that gap from 18 to 22, 23. A lot of them go missing. And it's just we need to keep those in the game at the top level. And hopefully this is what this league will do over the next 3 or 4 years,
But why do you think it is that they go missing then, Steve? In your opinion, why does that happen?
God, my opinion. Well,
it's a hard one, isn't it? It's a hard question,
it is,
I know. But
I've seen it because I work in Gower College now since I retired. So I'm part of their rugby academy, part of that elite under 18s program. Yeah. And you get lots of good players coming through that program, but then it's that when they get disappointment, a lot of the kids just throw the towel in, And is that just where we are? It's not a rugby thing. I think that's a society thing anyway, isn't it? Are we resilient enough? Because as soon as someone gets a knock back, it's hard to bring them back into it, And
I think rugby as a pastime, for want of a better phrase, is starting to become less of a thing. And like you say, it's these lads, they're good players, they want to become elite players, then they aren't being offered those opportunities. And then what would have happened back in the day is you'd have gone to play for your village side or your town side or whatever, and then hopefully build your way back up. And no one's really doing that. Yeah. No one's not getting into the regions and then going, well, I'll tell you what, I'll go and play for Bargoed or whoever. It's...
Well, it's that thing, and it's I might want to be the top, or I don't want to play. It's getting a bit like American sport now, isn't it? So either a pro-American football player, and there's nothing underneath it, really. You've got it's like the tip of the top of the triangle, but there's no base, and that's where we slowly develop into,
Yeah, that's right. So you mentioned it earlier, Steve, about Nelson Mandela, and I did have this question down. So on X, formerly known as Twitter, your profile picture is you meeting Nelson Mandela. Now, that's one hell of a memory to cherish, isn't it? Like, do you want to tell us a bit about that? Like, what was it like to meet Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, well, it was fabulous. Obviously, I wasn't actually in the starting squad that time, but we had all this travelling squad pretty much when I met him and shook his hand, and it's probably one of those only memories that I take from my rugby career that it sticks in my mind. It's like I can't remember half of the games I played in. I can't remember, some of the players I played with. I can't remember the names now, but that's one of the things that stuck in my mind. It was a great tour, And I had a couple of tours. I remember, I think it was the same tour. I think we travelled to South Africa and Argentina. We done them both on the same tour, and it was one game they played Argentina, and Clive Griffiths was the defence coach, obviously in the Dragons and in Wales. Yeah. Asked me to video the game behind the post for him while the game was going on, because obviously I wasn't involved. I went, no worries. So he chucked me up in this little box. There was no ladder, so I bring a ladder out to put me in this box. I videoed the game. I missed 4 tries because obviously I wasn't moving the camera properly, and they forgot about me. So after the game, I couldn't get down. They went to the aftermatch too, and I was stuck in the box for 3 hours. And then I couldn't get down. I was stuck up. Then literally just before they went back on the bus to go to the hotel, they remembered I was up in his box. I thought I'd be up there. So now, still up there. Now it's the same tour.
Another classic Welsh rugby moment, that isn't it?
God. He did ask me again. I missed the 3 tries he was tapping, Clive was.
But it shows you how far the game's come on, isn't it? That you've gone on tour as a member of the playing squad, and it's like, can you do me a favour? Can you go up there? And, you know, it wouldn't happen now.
Yeah. No, of course it wouldn't. Well, that was a time before we didn't really have analysis then. Really, it's such a big part of the game now. Analysis. It was just starting off around that period, and Clive was one of the top ones at it. He was brilliant, you know.
Yeah, and it was Mike Ruddock as well in charge. It would have been Mike and Clive, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Mike and Clive. Yeah, well, they both went from the Dragons then straight to Wales together, didn't they? And they were brilliant together. You know, brilliant.
Yeah, that's right. So you had 5 caps for Wales, Steve, and you was a member of the side that suffered a pair of those agonising autumn defeats in 2004. Now, one of them was against South Africa, wasn't it? Where we lost 38-36. The one that sticks in the memory, though, was the All Blacks, where we lost 26-25. And I remember that like yesterday. We really should have won that game, shouldn't we, Steve?
You're not blaming that last line out of me now, yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But that was the one that got away, wasn't it?
What an experience that yet again. Meeting Nelson Mandela and facing the All Blacks is an unbelievable experience. And like, I've only ever done it once, and I've only played 5 times Wales, but luckily it was that one game against the All Blacks. But just facing the Haka, it's just one of the most amazing things you could ever do. It's not intimidating and not scary. It's just amazing. Just seeing him in front of you doing that. And I was just there. Well, I was on the bench, so I wasn't really that nervous. But I was just there with a big smile on my face. Everybody's all trying to get psyched up, and this is just amazing. And they had a fabulous team as well. You know, all superstars, weren't they? Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'd like to say as well, Steve, as somebody who has to throw in the lineouts a lot as well, if it goes wrong, it's always the jumper's fault.
Definitely.
Never the hooker's fault, never.
God, I didn't think you were lifting when I was playing, anyway. You was only lifting back in.
Okay, so Steve, you made 180 appearances for the Dragons. Some highs, some lows. What stands out for you when you look back on your time at the Dragons? How do you look back on your time at the Dragons?
I loved it. Honestly, loved it. Like, the players I played with, especially in the first 5-6 years, we don't see much each other now. We've got a bit of a WhatsApp group going on. We have, we still have a little bit of banter with each other, but we were like a family. You know, we trained hard, we played hard, and we went out and enjoyed ourselves. Hard as well. But it was just a great environment to be with. And Clive and Mike really created that ethos that get the wagons in a circle. It's us against the world. And you would die for each other on that field.
Yeah,
and to be honest, we're on about making Rodney Parade a fortress. He was a fortress for a good few years. Not many teams won there. Yeah. And that's what they got to try and get back to. Because it's a great place to play, but it's horrible for the opposition if it's fully loaded with the fans, and it's a brutal place to be,
But it hasn't been that way for a while, Steve, is it? If we're being honest, it just hasn't. Is there any particular games then that stand out for you? Any memories?
Beating Munster away sticks in my mind. I think I was Luke Charteris' first game. I'm sure it was his first game for us up there when we beat Munster away. Beating the Ospreys all the time. Ever was a highlight for me.
Yeah.
I don't think we lost against the Ospreys at home for a good few years,
Yeah.
But I think there's so many memories of games that I couldn't really pick, But Munster away was special.
Yeah.
We beat Ulster quite a bit away. Any away games and results, it's a little bit more special,
Yeah.
Because we were expected to win at home. We were expected to win at home, so winning away was a big thing for us then.
Yeah. And I don't think it's been repeated since, is it? Winning away in Munster. I can't even remember the last time. He was probably part of the team that did win in Munster last time, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so staying with the Dragons then, and it has been, I'm afraid to say, another very disappointing season for the Dragons. Now, Steve, when you watch the Dragons, What do you think is going wrong there? Because the basics aren't being done correctly. And me and Gav seem to be having the same conversation on this pod about Dragons games week in, week out. Not doing the basics right, poor leadership, the skill set, the mentality. Like we spoke, didn't we, before we started recording? Like Dragons have always struggled, but in your day, Steve, we were more competitive. And Rodney Parade was a fortress, but now it just doesn't seem that way. So when you watch the Dragons, Steve, what stands out to you? What do you think is going wrong there? Is it the players? Is it the coaching? Or do you think it is a culture mentality issue?
I think we just stuck in that rock and the hard place where we've got a lot of really good youngsters playing together now, but it's hard to blood them all together at the same time. Like, just look at the Ospreys today now, where they got really good youngsters, but they still got a lot of like really old heads who are still at the top of the game. They got Nicky Smith, you got Sam Parry, who's at the Dragons for a few years, and he's been there and done it. So he helped those youngsters come through. So you've got the Morgan Moores coming through, the Harry Dees coming through, but they're not coming through all together. And I say now, I think Dai's done a great job there. He's trying to get that culture with all the local boys playing and playing for the jersey. You just need time, don't you? But in professional sport, you very rarely get time.
Yeah.
And people keep saying, well, we need more money. We do need more money, but that money's got to be invested in the player pathway more than anything to me. You can't just chuck it into the first teams of the regions and go out and get some, top players again. It's really got to be put into that lower level. And hopefully in a couple of years, it will come out,
It's the Irish system, isn't it? By the time 20-year-olds have got to Leinster, I mean, it's particularly Leinster, they are blooded, they know what to do, they know the systems, they understand what they're doing. And we seem to be just, well like the Dragons yesterday, lots of injuries. I think we pulled 4 or 5 lads, barely 20 out of the Newport team, and expected them to be able to get on with it. And it's not realistic.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've seen since I retired, where even when I finished, just when I was finishing, you'd play like Leinster and Munster, and there's boys coming out in that team on their debuts at 26 and 27, and you're thinking, oh, these are, I've never heard of these, and suddenly they're like international players within 6 months, but because they can keep them in the system for that long, we're in Wales, and this is not a Dragons thing, this is across the board. If you don't make it into the first team by 21 and 22, you're pretty much gone. And you've got to be a special player to get in the regional team at 21, 22. Because we can't keep him in a system, because we've got to bring the next kids through to try and, because we can't afford it realistically, That's where the premise should have been, where if we invest the money right, those boys can stay in the system until 25, 26 and come out as a proven pro player, but we just can't do it in Wales at the moment.
No, I don't think we've ever worked out what like we've talked about with the new competition. We've never really worked out in Welsh rugby what the relationship is between the regions and the clubs.
Well, I think with WI decisions and chucks it in the region's lap, the regions are going, oh my God, how are we going to do this? They chuck it in the club's laps, and the clubs are like, we got no players. Like, what do you want to do? It's, I don't know. Something's got to change, as I said earlier, but I don't know what the right way is, but we just got to back it, and hopefully it comes through in a couple of years, and it's going to take 5 years to see a change in it.
I think having faith is an essential part of being a Welsh rugby fan, isn't it? Whether or not you're a club fan, an international fan, wherever, having faith is always the watchwords of it.
Well, I remember watching Wales in the 80s. We'd be celebrating if we beat Romania.
Yeah,
it's like we'd be chuffed to beat Romania. I think we've been spoiled. Over the last 10 years, we have been spoiled as Welsh fans.
I say that to younger Welsh fans all the time. I say, you never had to watch the Welsh sides of the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I watched Wales in the 90s, mine. So, I mean, that's just as harrowing for me. Oh, dear. Okay, so just to touch on that, Steve, so you talked about youngsters there coming through. Now, Dragons have got some very talented youngsters, and we had a lot of youngsters last night. I think Aki Salu was the only player on the bench that was over 23 years old. So we did have a number of youngsters. And this isn't just a Dragons thing, but do you think that it can harm development to chuck kids in to a losing environment into teams who are, again, beating heavily every week? Is there an argument to say that can hinder development?
It can. It's just, yet again, it's one of them. It was 50-50 calls, isn't it? You look at the Welsh team now, Alex Mann and Gwent, they wouldn't have been playing for Wales if they still had X amount of money and foreigners playing in Cardiff. But they've been chucked in, And I've seen them come through the academy system, and they're fabulous players, and they've had a chance and they flourished. It's just difficult when you're giving 10 to 12 or 13 players a chance at the same time, 4 or 5 with a good core players around them, you can help bring them through. But when there's so many youngsters in one go, it's going to be tough, isn't it? It's going to be tough. But I would like to think all youngsters want to play. It's this, and if they are losing, they're just going to get better, and we've got to get better to bring them through. We might have a Welsh golden age again in 5-6 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might not.
So, no, of course, yeah. So let's talk about Wales then. One Gatland's men have played 2, lost 2. Now, we knew this was going to be a tough campaign because Wales are rebuilding, and like you said, we have got youngsters there. But there are reasons to be optimistic, isn't there, Steve, given the young talent that we got in this squad? So what have you made of the Six Nations so far, in particular Wales?
Well, I've enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the first half too much of the Scottish game. But but I think we've done well. I think we've done better when everybody else would think we would be. It's going to be tough. The next couple of games, it's going to be really tough. Obviously playing Ireland and France. But it's like anything. If you want to be the best, you want to play the best to see where you are and where you can improve. If we do lose by 30, 40 points, we just know where we are. We just got to get better. Or do we just can everybody off and start again? We can't keep doing that. We got to support the group we got now, and hopefully it'll come through.
Ireland are going to beat everyone by 30 points. I'm convinced of that. It's they just look ridiculously well drilled, and everything is clicking. So, I think we will get hammered by them, but I don't think there'll be anything different to what they do to England either.
Yeah. I think England have really disappointed me. If you think the player base they have, they just don't develop and play the game where, if you look at some of the club games and some of the players playing there, I don't know what happens when they get to international level. No?
I said this on the last part. I live in England. I kind of coach in England, and I always say to the English guys I know, you lot should be winning every Six Nations. You should have won at least 2 or 3 World Cups for the playing base you've got. But something happens the minute they pull those white jerseys on.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It is.
So with Wales then, Steve, do you think Juan Gatland was right to come back to us? Because some people said that we should have moved on, that we should have brought someone in fresh for the World Cup and beyond. Do you think he's the right man to rebuild, or would you prefer a new coach to come in and blood the youngsters?
It's difficult, isn't it? Who is available? That's the question, isn't it? Sometimes it's better the devil you know, right? The WRU knew what they were getting when they brought him back in. He sort of knows what's happening, really, the system's in place, sort of. So it's a bit of a stopgap, So it's just hopefully we can build now, and when his contract is up, whenever that is, but we've got something in place for someone to take over after that, Yeah. Like we tried with Pivac, they wanted to go a different direction with Pivac. He done okay, then he had a couple of bad losses, panic, and they sacked him. It's just one of those things,
I think with Pivac, and I'm sure I'm alone in thinking this, but I think with Pivac, it was almost that Six Nations he won was more by luck than judgment. And then I think it just felt a bit shapeless. But you're right, it needs to be dynasty planning. They need to know who comes after Gatland. And it needs to be thought out, and there needs to be somebody with a proven record. And, you see the same names always come up. Pat Lam, well, he's doing a terrible job at Bristol. You're not getting Scott Robertson now because he's coaching the All Blacks. So who's out there?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Who is available? Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any Welsh coaches we'd have?
Dwayne Peel's not covering himself in glory, is he, at Scarlets?
You've got Tandy in Scotland, Dai Young done a good job in Cardiff. I know he's not in Cardiff anymore, but is he something to look at? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I think he's on the naughty step for a bit, isn't he, Dai Young?
But I think we've got to have a vision. I think we've got to, if you look at how players we got now, we can't really play what Gatland, how he used to play the game. We got to evolve. And I think, and I think I think his game is going to evolve, just the fact you'll coach what players we got, and we'll just to find a way which best suits them,
we haven't got a big carriers, have we? You know, you look at our Welsh team now, and who's going to do the Jamie Roberts job? You know, we haven't got that player anymore.
And that's across Wales, man. If you look across all the regions, we haven't got. We're not big men at the end of the day, are we? You know,
No.
It's we haven't got those, like, you know, who going to get us over the game line with physicality and such. So we've got to be a little bit more smarter how we play the game.
No, and it's never really
agree.
been a Welsh thing anyway, is it? Like those kind of massive game line kind of. I'm trying to think of Welsh players like, and I'm really kind of limited in who I think. You know, kind of. I'm going back now. Mark Jones, who played for Neath in the 80s.
Yeah, God,
You know, but we don't produce many of those.
nah.
Oh,
Like
that's
if
right.
you look at like young Morgan Morse now was coming through in the Ospreys, you know, he's a fabulous player, but
Yeah.
all his breaks come with great footwork, you know, a bit of
Yeah.
agility and getting, you know, it's not like running over people, because I think there's not many people in the world who can do that now. You have to have a little bit of finesse about you know.
And I think defences have worked that out as well, haven't they? Because you think about Billy Vunipola when he first came through on the scene, and Billy Vunipola was breaking the tackles, making yards, and the defensive def worked out. Now, if you crowd him the minute he gets the ball, he goes nowhere.
But that's where Ireland are so good. You watch where Ireland are playing now, they're connected with the players out the back. The ball players always got 2-3 options. So the defender is always going to be, like I always say, sat on a shit there, but the defender's always going to be stuck. Not sure what option, and he can pluck him off, you know. So it's I just watching Ireland play. It's a joy to watch, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Is one of those tries against Italy where the 10's got the ball. He's got 4 men around him. The Italian defence is coming really sharp on it, and Lowe's just coming on an angle away from the defence, and Crowley throwing a huge pass. It's just such well put together rugby.
Yeah, they're well drilled and they're a well coached team in the island, and all credit to them. So, Steve, here's a question for you then. What would you change if it was one thing you'd change about the modern game? What would it be? Is there any particular law you want to see scrapped, or a new law you'd bring in? What bugs you at the moment about the modern game compared to when you played?
God, it's a good question, there. The one thing that really bugs me, I'll go scrum time as an ex-hooker, is why is it always a penalty if you're going backwards in a scrum? I actually think sometimes, just because you're going backwards, why is it a penalty? You don't get penalised for missing tackles. Just because you're going back in a scrum, it doesn't mean it's always a penalty. Sometimes it is. You know, sometimes see if it's a scrum's going forward, let it keep going forward. Like years ago, and you keep going forward, because it might stop then. Scrum, repeat, and it might speed the game up a little bit more. Because as soon as you get the arm comes out, you go for another scrum, or you kick in the corner, just to keep the game a little bit more, you know, a bit more alive.
Why do you think they give those penalties? Is it because Prop's losing his binding? But then it seems weird to give a penalty for Prop losing his binding when he's being shunted back 5 yards. Like,
No, but as soon as the scrum starts going back, the ref will always put his arm out.
Yeah.
Even if the props are still straight, still, you know, in the law, technically, where is the penalty? I just find that a little bit.
Yeah, you don't see that kind of drives over the line with the 8 scoring much anymore, did you? I used to love a try like that.
No, not anymore.
No.
Game's changed, isn't it? Game's different.
Those days are gone, Gav, I'm afraid.
Oh, right. Yeah, I imagine so.
Steve, you've been a great guest. Thank you very much for joining us on the pod this evening. But before you go, let's get a prediction from you then. So it's Ireland-Wales coming up now. We know it's going to be a tough one for Wales. How do you see it going? Can we compete? Are we going to be competitive enough, do you think?
I think we'll surprise a few people. I'm not saying we'll win, but I think we'll probably be within 15 points of them, I think. Well, I hope. You know, I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but I think we'll surprise. I think we'll surprise them. I think the longer we're together, the better we get normally as a Welsh team. You know, so defensively, I think we're getting a little bit stronger. It's just how can we threaten them with the ball in hand, and that's what I'd like to see a little bit more of. You know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you very much,
Steve.
Cheers, lads. See you later.
Bye. There we go. Steve Jabba Jones. Bit of a Dragons legend. Good to get him on, Gav, wasn't it?
A cult hero at the parade.
Yes, like I said, he's got his own snack bar named after him. So he made an impression there, didn't he?
Yeah. Proper rugby bloke, kind of lives and breathes the game. Played super hard.
Yeah.
As a player, just quite an old-fashioned hooker. I always had time for him.
Yeah. He does come across as an old school style player, doesn't he? Like,
Oh, yeah, just like, to use a phrase I used to Ian Gav, just a hard bastard. And the game is missing out on us now.
Absolutely.
If you had to do a list of like world rugby players who were just hard bastards now, you'd struggle to come up with a big list, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And I think Steve was always a reliable, solid club pro. But I would say as well, he should have had more than 5 caps for Wales. But I know he had, who did he have in front of him at the time? I guess he would have had like Matthew Rees, would he? Or I'm trying to think who he'd have in front of him.
Meffin
around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Garen Jenkins was on the end of it, but he was still there at the start of his international career. Yeah, Matthew Rees, Meffin.
I just thought he should have had more than 5 caps,
Robin
I think.
McBride.
I mean, 5 caps is better. Yeah, of course. Robin McBride, yeah. I mean, 5 caps is better than no caps. Fair play. And, we got to meet Nelson Mandela, and he's had a great experience with Wales. But, yeah, really good player. Glad he joined us tonight. Okay, then, Gav, we're going to have to talk about last night, I'm afraid. Glasgow 40, Dragon 7. 2 tries in the first 3 minutes set Glasgow on their way to a bonus point victory. There were 6 tries to 1. Glasgow did have 4 players released from the Scotland camp. We had 1. We had Kai Evans returning to us, but we had 21 players unavailable, and I think that does need to be taken into account. However, the performance, Gav, yet again, it's just not good enough, is it? Glasgow made 25 clean breaks. They beat 39 defenders, and they racked up 759 metres, whilst the Dragons missed a whopping 39 tackles, and they had a success rate of just 78%. And I've seen a stat, and I don't know if this is true. Apparently, we didn't make a single line break.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but I've seen that going down on Twitter.
That's the stat I saw.
That we didn't make a single line break.
And I can't remember one.
No, neither can I. So, Gav, what was your take on it then, on this game?
Right. So, I think we were lucky that it was just that, because I think Glasgow missed quite a few opportunities. Well, defensively, we were awful. And I'm not one for being negative. I know how hard it is to be a terrible rugby player like I am, never mind a guy playing at that level. But we didn't do stuff that you would expect guys who are being paid to do that should be able to do. The tackling was pitiful at times. Dan Lydiat.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times, Dan Lydiat's one of the most reliable tacklers in Welsh rugby. He seems to not have that anymore, because he wasn't there in the right places. There was a try early on we talked about there when him and Joe Davis have got the space covered, and they've wriggled through that. It shouldn't be happening. 2 professional rugby forwards should be able to stop that.
Yeah, so that was the first try. That was 30 seconds. And you had Joe Davis and Dan Lydiat, and somehow McKay managed to wiggle out of it. And that's just not good enough for me. I'm sorry. No. 2 experienced guys like that, that's unacceptable.
And it's easy to say, oh, well, the defence was poor. We know defence was poor. But we didn't look like we were going to do anything when we had the ball in hand. And, we've said before, oh, well, it's because we had young guys doing it. And it wasn't young guys. It was Angus and it was Kai Evans who were our pivots. And, and I've been very pro Kai Evans. But, oh, my God, his turning speed is not what an international rugby player's turning speed should be. He was like a bloody super tanker. Can you remember that super tanker that got stuck in the Suez? At one point, a ball's gone over his head, and he's kind of got. And I was like, come on, Kai, run, because it looked like he wasn't running.
I think that's one of the criticisms about Kai Evans. Is like, I've always defended him, and he's got his detractors, but he's not the quickest. I think it's fair to say. But it's just really disappointing, though, Gav, isn't it? Because I just want Dragons to be competitive. Look, you can't expect them to go up to Glasgow. This is Glasgow, who, by the way, haven't lost at home
No,
all season. Okay. They had some Scottish internationals back. They're a strong squad. Nobody realistically expects the Dragons to win
no.
up in Glasgow. But all we want to see is Dragons be competitive. You know, and I'm afraid I've got to say this, like I said about the Cardiff game, they're throwing in the towel too easy. And it was game over in the first half. And that's
Yeah.
just really depressing, isn't it? You know,
'Cause
when
you
you know the game is over so early, you just think, well, what's the point?
Because you would say that Glasgow side have got an outside chance of winning the URC. You
Yeah,
know,
they're a very good team.
yeah, you know, they're a proper team with a genuine chance of winning that competition. So we're never going to go up there to win. But like you said, I totally agree. And it's not, why aren't we doing the basics? And it is literally
Yeah,
the basics of rugby union.
I
It's,
know.
you know, it's not that we aren't playing super fast flowing rugby. I can live with that. We aren't making tackles. We are, our passing is poor. Our handling is poor.
It's the basics, Gav, isn't it? We spoke about this so many times on this
Yeah,
podcast. Why can we not do the basics right? You know, that
yeah,
because if you get the basics right, that's a start. But we can't even do that. There was one very Dragonsy moment in the second half. I don't know if you saw it. We had a couple of penalties. It was the rare occasion we actually put in Glasgow under a little bit of pressure. We went to do a tap and go, but we forgot to do the tap bit.
yeah.
And then it was a
A free
penalty
kick.
there to Glasgow.
Yeah,
Yeah, free kick to Glasgow. You know, stuff like that. Come on. Come on. It's basic, isn't it?
yeah.
Why can't they do it, Gav? Why can't they get the basics right?
Right. I'm trying to word this in a way that doesn't sound negative.
But we got to be honest about it. You know, I
Yeah.
think our listeners want honesty. You know,
Uh,
we've got to call out these really bad performances.
there is something going wrong in the coaching, and that's not criticism of Di Flannel. We have been positive about, but there is something going wrong, and I've seen a number of guys on the various Dragons forums we're both part of saying
Yeah.
about the defence coach. We've been saying that since the start of the season.
Yeah.
That's proof positive. Because if you said to me, "What's the defensive style of Dragons?" I couldn't tell you. I genuinely couldn't tell you. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. So for a reason I haven't quite worked out yet. I've watched quite a lot of rugby league this week, and why don't we just go to one of these clubs and they don't earn a lot of money, the rugby league guys, and say, "Come down here and sort out our defence." There'll be some bloke at Hull or Hull KR that will happily come down and help us get our defence right. Because you watch the rugby league defences, they can't tackle, bless them. But Jesus, they know how to close space down.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are in the market for a defence coach. Dave Flanagan has come out and said that, you know, he's spoken to a number of coaches, defence coaches around the world. So we will have a defence coach next season. And that's probably going to be announced in the summer.
That's too late,
But
though.
the problem is, and it's about now, Gav, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's why can't we defend competently now? And I know Sam Hobbs is helping out with the academy, but you know, I go back to it. These are professional rugby players, and there's too many tackles, one-up tackles, 101 tackles that are being missed. What do you put that down to? Is that the coaching, or is that the players?
Well,
Because people like Dan Lydiard and Joe Davis and others, they should know better. They know how to tackle. So why can't they do it?
it's 6 and 2 threes, I think, isn't it? Because tackling is about technique, and you know, if your technique is poor, if you're not in the right place, you're not going to be able to make a tackle. But if you're not in the right place, that might be not to do with your technique, but might be to do with coaching. It might be to do with how do you set the defense up. You know, it's a bit like the blitz. If you think in the Wales game against England, when Grady's come out and he's realised he's come up too quickly, so he's got no option. when that ball's floating over his head, but bat it down. You know, what is our defensive system? It looks like it isn't blitz. It's shuffle defense. But is it aggressive in certain places? I don't know. You know, kind of, and I'm watching, and I can't work out what the defensive system is, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know what our attacking system is either, which is also a problem.
We got no identity at the moment. If we,
No.
playing like you, Gav, I don't know what we're trying to do. I try not to be doom and gloom about it, but I mean, performances like that just dishearten me when I see the basics not being executed, and we're getting absolutely pummeled. Like I said, I don't expect to win these games. I just want us to be more competitive. I want us to do the basics right. I want to show us a bit more fight and not heads drop all the time. Because to me now, we are going back to this is what it was like under Bernard Chapman. As much as I like Bernard Chapman, really good, but when we were under Bernard Chapman, we went through this period where we were getting battered 40, 50 points every week. We had a load of kids, but we wasn't competitive. And we were losing quite heavily every week. And we had no shape or structure. And we've regressed back into that, haven't we, I'm afraid?
It's absolutely shapeless. And, I'm lucky in some ways. And kind of, I live where I live. So, my Dragons cost me 15 quid a month on Viaplay. I'm thinking of you and all the other season ticket holders who are there every other week.
Yeah.
That. And it's an entertainment business. You'll go in there because you want to be entertained. And when was the last time when you've been going a long time? I watched most of my rugby in Wales in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s. When's the last time you genuinely think you've watched the Dragons and thought that this is all right? I can cope with this.
Yeah, I mean the last Dragons game I really enjoyed at Rodney P. Well, the wins over Ospreys were good, but going back last season, we beat Munster, but that was like a bolt out the blue.
Yeah.
But I liked that game because we were always in control. But even when we sort of lost control, and Munster were threatening their way back into the game, we showed resolve and fight, and we came back and beat them. And of course, that's when Rio Dyer really made his name. What a fantastic day. And those are the days I like when Dragons front up and they show grit and fight. And they have done it at home. But the away record is awful, isn't it? I mean, we haven't won away for, over a year now? That's just not good enough. That's not good enough. And for all the talk about us wanting to make Rodney Prey the fortress, well, yeah, of course we do. But at the same time, you still got to be competent on the road. You still got to win your away games. If you want us to progress and climb up the table a little bit, you got to go to places. You got to front up, haven't you, guys? You can't just purely rely on home form.
Rugby isn't like it used to be. Rugby is a global game, a professional game. And when we talking to Steve, I remember going to watch games down at Neath on a Tuesday. I think my dad just liked the aggro, to be honest, because that Neath team was fairly aggressive. But yeah, that was an incredibly intimidating place to go to. But those places don't exist anymore. No one plays in stadiums like that. The top teams play in massive stadiums that don't have those atmospheres. So it's a different thing now. You should be able to go to Munster if you're competent, Glasgow, Italy.
But be competitive.
And be competitive and win the occasional game of rugby. I can imagine that Thomond Park back in the 80s was an absolute horrific place to go and play rugby. It's not like that anymore.
Here's a question for you, Gav. Will we win another game this season?
Who bloody knows, Jamie? Who bloody knows? We've got to beat Zebra at home, haven't we? We've got to put our heart and soul into it. I'm not saying we will.
They very nearly, I saw some highlights, they very nearly beat Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how they are improved. So I'll just read out the fixtures, right? So it's Ulster away, who lost to the Ospreys. I mean, that's going to be a heavy beating. We got the Bulls at home. We got Zebra at home. We got to go to Benetton. Tough place now. Benetton will fly in.
Team.
We got Connacht at home. Is that a winnable game? I used to think it was. I don't know anymore. But then we got the Stormers at home. Ospreys away. We haven't won in Swansea for absolutely ages. But the last time we won in Swansea was when Di Flanagan was the Ospreys fly off. That's a true fact. And then we got the Scarlets at Judgment Day. And I appreciate that. I don't want to be doom and gloom. I appreciate I probably am sounding doom and gloom. I do apologise for that, if listeners aren't happy with it. But I'm struggling to see a win out of these fixtures, Gav.
Right.
Be the positive one then. You give me
Well,
reasons to be cheerful.
We could, he says, we could potentially beat Zebra. We could potentially beat Connacht. We could also potentially lose both of those games. There's not one there I would say, oh yeah, we'll definitely win that. There's two that I would say are winnable. We aren't beating Bulls. We aren't beating Stormers unless, they send their kids across.
I remember the last time Bulls came to Ronnie Parade, and me and Dad just couldn't believe the size of them. Their pack, Gav, was absolutely huge. We looked like little boys compared to them. They really fit. I mean, you could say that a lot about the South African teams, but the Bulls are massive.
Oh no, yeah.
And you talk about scrums going backwards earlier. Like our scrum was going backwards at a rate of knots when the Bulls came to town the last time. So
they are blokes just bred on lumps of beef about that big, aren't they? Those Bulls forwards.
Well, let's end on some so positive. So we did have a lot of kids out in Glasgow, and it was nice to see Joe West with the likes of Sam Scar. So he was making he's from Pontypool, plays Pontypool, so he was making his first Dragons appearance. Should have played a hooker, but he ended up playing a flanker with a converted hooker packing down a number 8, which is not ideal. That's not the experience he should have had, but fair play to him. He stepped in and, I thought he did all right. He did not go for it.
That's no way to blood a youngster in. Oh, you're a hooker, right? Oh, yeah, can you go and play 6? That's fine in Sussex Division 5, not in the bloody URC.
But that's the worrying thing, Gav, isn't it? I'm just concerned. I mentioned the experience of these youngsters. I'll always say the Dragons have got talented youngsters, but it's the experience of being in a team that's getting pumped. It can't be good for them. It can't. But this is the future now, and I think Dave Flanagan made a comment saying, they're a young group, but we got to stick with them, which is fine. But then we got to start looking then at the senior players, because actually, if you looked at yesterday, the senior players really let the team down.
If you're blooding young players, and this is the same, this genuinely is the same for the URC and Sussex 5. My club is we've got lots of guys, not so much young. Well, they are relatively young, but they've never played rugby before.
Yeah.
But we are blooding them in a core group of players, all of whom have been playing rugby together for about 10, 12 years. And it means those newer lads are just learning alongside people who know how to play together, and you can seamlessly fit them in. If you said to me, what's our first choice 15 this season, I wouldn't bloody know. Have we played the same 15 2 games in a row? I don't think so.
I'm not sure, but it's difficult at the moment, and we've got 15 players out injured, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's just one of those things. I mean, we're not the only team. The Ospreys, we all know about them. They had 20 odd players missing, but the difference with the Ospreys, they went to South Africa and they beat the Lions.
Yeah,
with kids. Now, if we go to South Africa and we had that amount of players missing, well, we've already seen it. We're going to get pumped. Yeah, exactly. We're going to get pumped. Because when you take 21 players out of an already paper-thin squad, you're asking for trouble, isn't it, Gav? So,
and it's like, you think about some of the core positions. How many people have played at hooker this season for us?
We've had Brody Coughlin, haven't we? We've had Roberts, we've had D, James Benjamin, who's ended up having to play in the back row. This is a guy who we've had on the pod as well. Though we know he's a very talented player, but he shouldn't have to be playing in the back row. He shouldn't have to be doing that.
So we've had 4 hookers. Like, that's not ideal. We've probably had 8 props. I think we've gone through Yandel, Coleman. So yeah, at least 3 or 4 on each side. You can't build anything if you don't know who you're playing with.
Yeah. In other news, we know about this already, but the reports in the media this week. So Tame Basham is weighing up his future. and the Dragons face a battle to hold on to the Wales back rower. So Wales Online are reporting that he's held talks with the Scarlets, but there's interest from Sale Sharks, Northampton and Saracens. So if he signed for an English club, obviously he falls short of the 25 caps required. But there is a possibility he could leave us and go to Scarlets. So I just wanted your thoughts on that, Gav.
Well, that's frying pan fire, isn't it? You know, well, I could understand wanting to go to Northampton or Sale because you get paid more and you'll win games. He won't play much rugby because he won't get no sides. But you know, he will get paid more and he'll win games. Why would he go to Scarlets at the minute? Scarlets are in the worst place than us.
Yeah, Scarlets. I don't think there's much difference between the two teams at the moment.
No.
Dragon Scarlets. I think we're both pretty hapless, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't know, unless it's been a falling out, with the coaches. Maybe he wants a change. I'm trying to see how many Wales caps he got. So don't trust Wikipedia, but I am looking at Wikipedia. It says he got 17 Wales caps. Could be more than that, but he does fall short of the 25 required.
He'll probably have 25 by the time his contract's up.
Well, I'm not sure about that because it's up this season, isn't it? So there won't be many games for him. Well, I don't know if I include the summer tour. So
yeah, he'll get another couple. I don't know. I don't. I've not rated him for a while anyway. I think.
Who would you replace him with though if he goes? I mean, George Young did play last night. Yeah, and he's highly rated.
Yeah, a bit early.
He's not Tate Basham, is he?
No, he's a bit early for him, I would suggest. Well, I was going to say you've got Ollie, but you haven't got Ollie because, he's
injured again. Concussion, I believe, this time. He was concussion.
And Harry Keddy's always injured as well, bless him. So I would hope, he says, that if he does leave, we replace him.
Yes, but I think we should try to keep him personally. I do like Tate. Do I think he's lost his way over the past year or so? Yes, I do. I have to be honest. But, he is a talented player. And it's like Chris said, he has to be kept in check, doesn't he? And that's what Dean Ryan was doing. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But in other news as well, Dragons announced that they've signed Matthew Screech, which came as a shock to many people because he was on loan from Cardiff for the past 2 years, but they have signed him and made it permanent now. So good news, Gav, or how do you feel about that?
He's an option, isn't he? I don't think... I'm not going to get up and applaud at the joy of Matthew Screech signing for us, but he's a good, solid pro who will always give his best.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Excellent video as well from the Dragons, by the way. I don't know if you saw it. They did a take on Saved by the Bell.
Oh,
remember,
yes,
there was a character called Screech.
Yeah.
Quite inventive by the Dragons social media team, and that was good to see. We had AA Ron, that sketch, with Aaron Wainwright, which I thought was really good. So the Dragons social media team are up in their game on the signings video front, didn't they? So credit to them.
Like that Ospreys one you shared, though. That was great.
I know,
we get that? That's definitely heartwarming.
Yes, they do it. They got a really good social media team at the moment, the Ospreys.
Because the best thing for me was, I love this Origin weekend when you get to see the clubs that people started at, and and people in their Newport High School Old Boys socks and Cumbrand socks. Yeah,
it's nice, isn't it? Yeah, I thought that was very well done, and credit to all the teams taking part. Good initiative, and we saw it at Cardiff as well. So it's good stuff.
I think grassroots rugby is clearly something I'm involved with, but it's the heart of the game, and I think we have to remember that.
Yeah, and it's where everyone starts, isn't it? They all start at grassroots. So it's good to recognise that.
No, nobody starts at the Dragons, do they? They start at Ebervale or Blackwood or wherever it is.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Okay, let's move on then. It's time for the Gwent Rugby Roundup. What's been happening, Gav? A big win for Newport, wasn't it?
It was a fantastic win for Newport. Newport are second. They're a long way behind Llandovery, and Llandovery do not look like they're slowing down. but Newport looked odds on for second, and I don't know. You didn't see it, but kind of in that Murphy game, Lewis Lloyd, who's a Newport winger, makes one of the most ridiculous tackles you've ever seen, where the Murphy fullback is already celebrating in his head, and he's probably got 20-meter head start on the Newport winger, who was caught up on him and brought him to ground after an amazing show of pace.
Absolutely. I have to watch that then. I will watch that after we finish this pod.
It's ludicrous. But yeah, 31-15 away win to Murphy. Vale also won on the road at Osprey's new home ground, Bridgend. They won 36-13. That's isn't that what they're trying to do? They're going to play Bridgend anyway. I digress. And Pontypool also won at home at 20-13 against Cardiff. So good weekend for their
very good
sides in the Prem. Championship East, Cross Keys beat Rumney, Cardiff 21-10. Newbridge lost at home. First loss at home for a while for Newbridge. They lost 16-19 to Bedwas. And Penaltha lost 26-18 away to Ystrad Rhondda. In Division 1 East, Monmouth beat Abergavenny 24-17. Unbeaten Bryn Mawr continue up with a 46-10 win at Risca. And in the clash of our youth rugby sides, NSD beat Dowlers 24-17. So you've done the double over my old youth side there. And then Division 2 East, Ablairi Blaenau Gwent beat Garndiffaith 29-15. Killeen lost 8-12 at home to Blackwood. Caldicott lost 15-17 at home to Oakdale. Croeso Killiog beat Newport High School Old Boys 21-14. Pill Harriers beat Cumbraen 17-14. Lots of Newport derbies there. And then in the Division 3 East, what I'm going to suggest might have been quite a miserable game. Abertwysog beat Abercarn 9-0. Have you ever played at Abertwysog?
I haven't, no. I don't think I've ever been there.
It's quite a windy place, and I imagine it was wet. Yeah, that must have been quite unpleasant for the spectators, but a good win for them. Chepstow beat Machen 13-10. Rumney, Gwent Rumney lost 10-17 at home to Nanty Glow. And then my local sides, RTB Ebervale, you can see their floodlights from my mother's house, won 27-33 at home to Fleur de Lis in Division 3 East. In Division 4 East, Crickhowell beat New Panteg 2019. Cracking game that. Crumlin beat Blackwood Stars 41-10. And then in the Division 5, Abersychan lost 32-7 at home to Fordside. Pontland Fife, who were unbeaten as well, beat Hollybush 21-8. And then in the Division 6 East, Derry beat Hartridge High School Old Boys 42-10. Mago beat Trinant 24-20. And Tredegar Iron sides beat Girlin 19-0. So all the rugby that was played in Gwent that weekend.
Excellent. And Newport and Pontypool doing really well, aren't they, in the Welsh Premiership?
Pontypool are 5th, Newport are 2nd, Ebbw are 3rd.
Yeah, as well, Ebbw, yeah, the Gwent club's doing very, very well. It's good to see.
Other than, Llandovery are the only side better than Ebbw and Newport at the minute, and they are very strong, Llandovery. But yeah, I have been a huge fan of Neath's reaction online. I remember Neath being the baddies of Welsh rugby, and if you're a Neath fan, I don't mean that in a bad way. Because I idolise Kevin Phillips. He's still one of my favourite players ever.
Yeah.
But I like to see Neath revert into that. But there was a useful point in that for me. All that madness on social media. Ospreys don't want to play at wherever it's called, the Liberty, Swansea.com Stadium, wherever it's called, because it's too big and they're not filming and there's no atmosphere. Yeah. I get that. It's
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Lions in South Africa and playing 2,000 people in the 70,000 seat stadium. Not fun. But why not the Knoll?
Depends.
Come and play there.
It depends on what kind of maintenance needs to happen? Like, is it cheaper to do at Bridgend because it needs less work than the Knoll, which probably needs more work? How fit for purpose is the facilities? And that has to be taken into account. It's got to be fit for purpose for a pro standard.
And it's a bit like David Buttress said, and they, like, took the game up to Ebervale, realised the infrastructure wasn't there. But the infrastructure...
And he was honest, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but the infrastructure can't be at the brewery field either. I've not been to the brewery field since the 80s. It wasn't a great ground then, and I'm sure the Knoll is worse, if anything.
But they've had pro games at Bridgend, and they've had, success at Bridgend, haven't they? So I think maybe... I think they'll plump for, this sounds like a Swansea... bloody Ospreys podcast now, but I think they'll plump for Bridgend personally.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where because if you think about it, they've already moved the European game against Sale to Bridgend. So to me, it's like they're putting out the feelers now.
They want St Helens, don't they? But St Helens is never happening because St Helens is falling apart.
Like I said, it just depends on the facilities and how much it's going to cost to do up the facilities.
We've got a proper ground for our club. We are lucky in that respect.
I was just about to say, so one of the things that's made me realise, looking at the whole Osprey situation and the crowd, we are incredibly fortunate to have Ronnie Parade as our crowd.
Yeah.
So, people talk about Cardiff, it's in the city centre, you fall out of a pub, you fall into the crowd. Well, yeah, that's Ronnie Parade as well. That is Ronnie Parade. We are so lucky with our location and the pubs that surround us. And 3,000 at Ronnie Parade, it doesn't look great. But the atmosphere is still pretty good. But when you put 3,000 in a 20,000 plus seater stadium in the Swansea.com, it doesn't look good. And there's no atmosphere. I've been to the Swansea a few times, at that ground. And it is a poor atmosphere, but it's the people that make the atmosphere as well, isn't it? But I'm fortunate really that we got Rodney Parade as a sporting venue, because give me aging city centre stadiums any day that out of town, shiny, brand new stadiums on a retail park with zero atmosphere. Because that's what Scar's got, that's what the Ospreys got, and it's shit.
And Cardiff tried it for a bit and then decided they didn't like it, didn't they? They went back to what they have, like a rugby ground in the city centre.
They went to CCS, that was a disaster. So, we're very fortunate with Ronnie Parade and the Arms Park, because I'm sure that money will be pumped into that by the new owners there. So, I just think we're quite incredibly fortunate. That was my takeaway from that Ospreys situation. Right then, I think we'll leave it there, Gav. Thank you as always for joining me. So we'll be back next week where we'll chat Wales, see how they go on against Ireland. That's going to be a tough one, isn't it? Actually, let's get your prediction for that. How do you think that's going to go?
Ireland 39, Wales 12.
I got a feeling it's going to be 20 plus points.
Yeah,
it could be very, very tough, couldn't it? So we will look ahead to Dragons' daunting trip to Ulster. We may or may not have an Ulster fan with us. We'll see how we go on there. But that is all for this week. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. So thanks for joining us. We'll speak again soon, Gav. Goodbye.
Thank you all.